Welcome to Front Office Pros. Today, we're going to be going through Dynasty Rookie Running Back Rankings before the 2025 NFL Draft.
Hike!
In this episode, we're going to be going through our top 15 Dynasty Rookie Running Back Rankings with tiers, Joe and I both. So, Joe, why don't you start us off? I will say this was very a difficult process. This is probably arguably maybe the best running back class that we'll see ever in regards to running backs coming in, or at least as good as the 2017 class, as they'll say. It'll be close. We'll only know in a few years. We'll see how good these players perform. It could just be hype. But, man, you've got every shape and size that you want when it comes to running backs. So I know it was a difficult process. I'll be curious to hear what you think, because you and I do not know what each other are going to do here.
No, we don't. Yeah. And I mean, it definitely wasn't an easy process. There's a lot of interesting guys to talk about. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how we compare here.
All right. Tier number one. Who do you got?
All right. In tier number one, at the number one spot, I've got running back Ashton Jeanty.
And that's it.
That's it.
All right. So at number one, I've got running back Ashton Jeanty. And then number two, running back Omarion Hampton. So not all that surprising that you and I both have Ashton Jeanty here. Now, when we first were doing this, I actually had Hampton 1 and Jeanty 2, and I got a little flack on that. But I think for me, as I looked into it more, I do believe his downside is his lack of long speed and that he played against the Mountain West competition. Right? I mean, think about, what was the last Mountain West running back that you can remember that did all that much? Rashad Penny, maybe?
Besides LaDainian Tomlinson?
But that was TCU back in 2000. Was it 5 when that happened? I think they went to the Mountain West in 2005. But anyways, so I still think those things are factors. But Joe, I mean, he's a dual threat running back. He led in 2023. He led the NCAA with 569 receiving yards. He then led the NCAA this year with 2,601 rushing yards, and that was the difference between him and the next guy was 890 rushing yards. So I just think his contact balance is elite, and he's that guy. He really is.
Yeah, to me, he really is that guy, and that's kind of why I have him in a tier of his own. I understand. I get the hype about Hampton and the fact that people are saying he's kind of creeping up there to the Ashton Jeanty category. I just think, Jeanty is clearly the number one guy. You mentioned it with just, his vision, contact balance, and his ability as a receiver as well out of the backfield. He does it all. And yeah, I just think he's that elite prospect and deserves to be in a tier of his own here.
My only question is that in dynasty leagues, how much of a priority do you make in trying to trade maybe the farm for this guy in a generational running back class? You have that kind of problem even for NFL teams. Are they going in this such a deep running back class? Does it really make sense, even though Jeanty is such a good prospect? Do I really draft him in the top 10 when I could get a guy in the 3rd or 4th who could be really, really good? And that's tough. I don't know. What do you? I mean, you have him 1. I have Hampton as a part of this group because I think when it comes to Hampton, he's a complete running back in all phases. He had back-to-back 1,500 rushing yard seasons, 15 rushing touchdowns. So to me, these are the two backs to me that are complete backs. You can play them 1st, 2nd, 3rd down. Can be involved in pass protection. The other ones, there's question marks. They have their strengths, they have their weaknesses. But these two guys are the only ones I feel like can be an all-around player and impact on every down. So to me, that's why I felt like Hampton deserved to be in this tier 1, because we are ranking 15 guys, and I just didn't think Hampton I think there was a gap between him and the other guys there in tier 2.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I mean, I know a lot of other people feel that way as well. And like I said, I mean, even for NFL teams, I mean, they're saying that gap is kind of closing. We kind of heard that, in the draft with Bijan Robinson and Jahmyr Gibbs. Heard Gibbs was kind of closing the gap. And then, there was the Lions taking Gibbs not too far after Bijan Robinson there.
So to answer my question, though,
Yeah.
would you trade the farm for GT? Like, do you see that big of a difference between him? Like, would you rather have? Okay,
I think
I'll
in
give
terms of
Sin.
dynasty, I think in order to like really trade for Genty, and go ahead and like get him at the top, I feel like you'd have to really be like a running back away, and you have to be like a solid competing team. I think for that piece, running back to really matter. Like if you're a rebuilding team and stuff, I think it's tough based on we know that the running back position, just the they don't play as long as other positions, so you don't get that positional value. So it's not as much of a luxury as it is with like a team that's already competing and has a really good roster.
Yeah, you and I are lock solid on that philosophy. I think running back, just because of the scarcity of the position, too often it gets pushed up draft boards in dynasty leagues, and I think unnecessarily so. There's only a window of time where they're relevant, and all of a sudden, usually after their first contract, they're no more. The good ones will go beyond the first contract. Probably GT would, but it's early yet. We don't know. So I'm with you. I mean, if you want to make a move like that, I think you're better off getting two guys maybe in the tier 2 range or tier 3 range than you are maybe getting the one guy in GT, depending on if you need, depending on your depth at your running back position.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, this is the type of draft where it's really deep at the running back position. If you need them, maybe be okay with the later picks, and like you said, just take a couple of shots on these guys, because I mean, somebody is going to be, a good producer, and somebody's going to also surprise. People didn't think Bucky Irving was going to be that great. I know some people are more excited than others, but then, he turns out to be looking like an elite dynasty prospect right now. So somebody's going to come out of the woodshed that we're not anticipating.
All right, so let's head over to tier number 2. This is where it'll start to get a little interesting.
Yep. And tier 2, at number 2, I've got Omarion Hampton. At number 3, I've got Travion Henderson. And at 4, I've got Quinshon Judkins.
Okay. At 3, I've got running back Travion Henderson. 4, running back Quinshon Judkins. And number 5, running back Cam Scatabo. Scattaboo.
I say Scatabo. You've been saying Scattaboo. I don't know which is right.
I don't know which is right either. So you and I both agree. I mean, anything else you'd want to add, I guess, on the Hampton piece? I mean, from what I said, I mean, I think you just feel GNT's that much better.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I think, Hampton is definitely, he's kind of a different style with just that violence that he runs with, and he's just a tough runner and he breaks tackles. Really likes that contact as well. But you're not wrong. He's also a complete back like Genty as well.
So you had the Ohio State running backs here in tier number 2. What was your logic behind having these guys in there? Travion Henderson, I feel more often than not, if you look at consensus, he's right around this range. He's usually 3. Sometimes he's ahead of Hampton. Sometimes some people have him a little bit lower, but more often than not, he's around here. Judkins kind of can be a little bit all over the board some. He isn't as consistent here. But what were your thoughts here for these two guys?
Yeah, Judkins is kind of all over the board. I mean, I think Henderson just deserves to be here. Like his with his speed and his home run ability that he has with that acceleration, and then also just his ability to be receiver and even a good route runner as well, is a real difference maker, especially in dynasty. And then Judkins is interesting. Like I feel like he really came alive during the college football playoff. And even though he did have a good season as well, I think maybe he would be better if he wasn't with Ohio State and he didn't have like him and Henderson weren't splitting the carries there. And maybe if he could have been true like alpha somewhere, he might have shown better. But I think that's partially why his stats don't look that great. But just like watching him, I feel like he deserves to be right there behind Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, Henderson being 3 is a little bit of a different philosophy than I've had in the past, because I think more than likely he's a committee running back. I don't think he's ever going to be a guy who gets 20 plus carries. I think you're looking at 12 to 15 carries for him. He's the best pass protector in this draft. So, he's going to be involved in the receiving game. He's a great receiving threat, but you're going to have to rely on him having those breakaway runs. And which he can. It just means you have to do, as I always like to say, you have to do more with less.
Yeah.
And I do like volume, but on the other side with Quinshon Judkins, I like him a lot. And for me, he has more power than contact balance. I think I probably would prefer contact balance. He just truck sticks people. The big question mark will be with him though is can he get involved in the passing game, or is he purely just a first two down guy? I do think the combine helped him. I don't think people were expecting him to do as well in the 40 time, and for him to have a 1.51 10-second split, which shows that great acceleration that he has, I think that helped him a lot. So, I think at the end of the day, it'll be a question of can he get involved in the passing game? If not, it'll limit his upside. And so it kind of worked out, the combination of them, because they kind of played to each other's strengths.
Yeah, they really did. And I mean, even though he wasn't that involved, I do think he, has good hands as a receiver, and has that receiving ability. But then he's also got good ball security as well. He's only had 3 fumbles and 800 touches.
Now, does the durability concerns make you nervous at all as far as Travion Henderson? I mean, he hasn't really been able to have a full season, at his time in Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, guys have durability issues, that is a bit concerning. But, at the running back position, durability is always kind of a concern because they're taking big hits and, taking the big hits by the linebackers and defensive linemen and everything. So durability is always a concern no matter what. But I guess it is heightened for him. But just trying to rank these guys purely off of like potential and what they are athletically, I still think he deserved to be at 3 here.
I'll talk about Scadabo here quick. I like him a lot. I almost thought about putting him ahead of Quinshon Judkins, to be honest with you. The reason being is, you don't typically see a guy like him who's a bruiser of a back be a dual threat running back. He's a great receiver on the backfield. He had 45 receptions, 605 receiving yards, and 3 receiving touchdowns. 5'9.5", 219 pounds. Like I said, he's a bruiser. He has great contact balance, ton of missed tackles. The only thing is with him, he's got a lot of tread in the tires. But to me, I think he's James Conner, but even maybe better. So to me, I honestly was tempted to put him ahead of Judkins. I've always, I've liked Judkins, but
yeah,
I don't know. Scadabo, it's like, it's impressive.
And Scadabo is definitely an, interesting player and intriguing player, and I feel like he's definitely been on the rise as well.
Yeah, I'll be curious, Joe. Now that we head over to tier number 3, are we going to be hearing Scadabo's name over there?
Yep, you sure will, Steve. So at number 5, I've got Cam Scadabo. And at number 6, I've got Caleb Johnson. And at 7, I've got Damian Martinez.
Okay, interesting. So at number 6, I got Caleb Johnson. 7, DJ Giddens. 8, Devin Neal. And 9, Damian Martinez. So now we're heading into a new tier here. You and I both have Caleb Johnson. But other than that, and Damian Martinez. And then you've got Scadabo. What was your thoughts on having those guys here in tier 3?
Yeah, I think they're all kind of interesting because, none of these guys have really blazing speed, but, they're productive players. Also are some, bruising backs and backs that run with power. So that's why I kind of lumped them together here. And I feel like a lot of them, they also have, good contact balance as well, which is really nice. And then, as far as, Scadabo, I really like his receiving ability that he has and his receiving upside. And, I just remember that one phenomenal catch he made along the sideline in the college football playoff. That was really impressive play for a running back to be able to make.
Yeah, I think so. With Caleb Johnson, he's a guy that people are all over the board on with him. He makes me nervous. Based on Football Insights, 80% of his attempts were from a zone-based scheme. I think he's very zone dependent. I think his landing spot will matter greatly. I would think that he's going to go to a team that runs zone, or else I don't know what they'd be doing. It'd be very head scratching. It'd be a 1 year. Well, he's only had 1 year of solid production there. He obviously very strong, production that he had in Iowa, but he's got great vision, and that's what you need in a zone scheme. So to me, honestly, running back is very landing spot dependent. I would say probably the most out of any position. I think you and I would probably agree on that. So I'll be curious all around, but he in particular makes me, I think people will have him up as high as like 3. I think that's too much.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy that I had ranked a lot higher when we were talking about, mock drafts and things like that early on in other videos. But just after kind of, looking more in depth in the tape and just kind of listening to some analysis and stuff on him. And really the one thing I learned, as you mentioned, like just how independent he could be on that zone scheme and with the landing spot. But like you said, if you're not his own scheme, I don't know why you would draft Caleb Johnson. So hopefully he just goes to his own team, because then I think he'll be truly utilized, the right way.
Yeah, and then Damian Martinez, you and I both had him. You're right, definitely a power back. I view him more as a two-way player. It's just 2 downs. Maybe he gets involved in 3rd down. That'll be the question. Can he get involved in all 3 downs and have that pass ability? At the end of the day, he doesn't have as much tread in the tires. So I think that, he could have a great opportunity. Runs real solid, Joe. I could see why you had him in the tier you did. I have him a little bit lower than you, but, I agree with your logic.
Yeah, no, I just he's got really good patience for a bigger running back, and then after watching some of his tape, I just really like how he finishes the runs as well. Seeks the contact and typically is falling forward, which is I really like to see from a running back.
Yeah, that's definitely your style. I'll briefly share my thoughts here on Giddens and Neal. Curious to see if you have them, either of those 2 guys. With Giddens, honestly, he's like playing Madden with the joystick, man. He just has a great combo of suddenness and size. He's 6 foot 212. Usually you're seeing guys, I think, probably in the 5'9", 5'10". So he's got that height, while he's also able to be very sudden in his movements. He's very quick. So to me, I think it's very compelling. I think he could, if he goes to the right team, I think that somebody could really utilize his skills. So to me, it's like I'm impressed by his juking and his spinning and his way to evade tackles. So to me, I felt like even though he's not, I have a kind of a combination of power backs and more of elusive backs, but I was really impressed by him. And then Devin Neal is a guy who I think he's an all-around player. He's just nothing special. There's nothing that really jumps out that is like, okay, this is like a huge strength. He's just pretty much good, kind of vanilla, if you will. But over the past 2 seasons, over 1,200 rushing yards and 16 touchdowns each year. I think to me, I like him because here's the thing with him. I think he could go to a place where he's used and he's productive, but maybe he's only there for 2 years, or maybe he only is the starter for 2 years or 3 years, and then some running back comes in, they bring a specialty running back in, and it eats into his opportunity. I don't know if he's going to be a guy who, we're talking about players who I think are really interesting, but they need to fill out their game if they're going to be a really impactful dynasty player. And if they don't do that, then they're only going to be involved in situational type of roles for offenses. So I'd want to see more from him going forward. Can he, I don't know, hit another gear in the NFL? We'll see.
Yeah, that'll definitely be interesting. He's definitely an interesting player and a guy who kind of stands out when you do watch him.
All right, let's head over to tier number 4. Who do you got there?
All right, tier 4 at number 8, I've got RJ Harvey. At number 9, I've got Devin Neal. 10, I've got Dylan Sampson. And at 11, I've got Trevor Etienne.
Okay. At number 10, I've got Dylan Sampson. 11, Basel Tutin. 12, RJ Harvey. So just 3 guys there in my tier over here. We both have Dylan Sampson and Harvey, so let's talk about them first. For Sampson, the numbers are eye-popping. He had, he's 20 years old. He's 5'8", 200. He had almost 1,500 rushing yards, 22 touchdowns. To me, Joe, the Tennessee system scares me. There's less men in the box. It's more of a gimmicky system. We went on this whole roller coaster ride of Jalen Wright, and what happened with him? So
Yeah.
I'll be just curious to see where he falls in the NFL draft. Where's his landing spot? When we hear afterwards, in the press conferences, maybe if they kind of share a little bit of what they expect this guy's role to be. I'm a little bit, maybe I'm reading too much into that, but the system certainly helps him. There's no question about it.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. I mean, I'm a guy that got Jalen right in Dynasty, and haven't been too pressed thus far in the NFL, but there's still plenty of time for him to turn it around. But yeah, you mentioned the Dylan Sampson numbers, and just he's just got that burst and acceleration. And then he is able to hold up in pass protection, and it's just interesting. Even at his size, like he's still able to produce in the red zone in short yardage situations, as it was shown with his 22 touchdowns this year.
Yeah, as far as RJ Harvey goes, there's a lot of people who really like him. And honestly, I mean, he's got a great combination of contact balance and quickness. He had over 1,500 rushing yards and 22 touchdowns. My thing is he's 24 years old. Now, I know you may not care about that, but for me, you're talking about usually a running back at 28, 29, the wheels start falling off. So you're talking about he's probably only good for one contract. Don't really think he's getting a second contract. So I'm only going to get him for a limited time as it is, any running back.
Right.
To me, it shortens the window. So, it will be, again, landing spot dependent. We'll see where he goes. But I'm not all that excited because, I want, if you're getting a running back, you want an immediate impact. And, who knows in future drafts if that team who drafts RJ Harvey, do they draft another guy that comes in after that? I mean, you just never know. So to me,
yeah,
that sort of concerns me. What are your thoughts on Harvey?
Yeah, I mean, I get the concern with him being older, but heck, a lot of these running backs we're going to be talking about is only going to have their 4-year rookie contract as well. So I mean, that doesn't necessarily concern me, but I really like him. I mean, he's a compact runner, being that he's 5'8", but he's got the quickness and he's got that jump cut ability. You mentioned his contact balance as well, and he's got good hands out of the backfield and just really provides some home run ability there as well.
So you had Trevor Etienne. And I think you had one other player I'm trying to remember. So why don't you go ahead and share your
Devin
thoughts?
Neal, who you talked about.
Okay. Anything additional on Devin Neal? And then what are your thoughts on Trevor Etienne?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Devin Neal is somebody, like I said, he kind of stands out with that quick first step that he has. He also has the breakaway speed. And then, I like that he's kind of steadily improved as a receiver as he's gone on there. But then for Trevor Etienne, I feel like he's got really good vision. Was able to change direction without losing speed. And then he's another guy that's, able to hold up in pass protection. At 5'9", 198 pounds, 4.42 40 time. He had 609 rushing yards, only 9 touchdowns. Stats aren't great, but I think obviously, his brother is Travis Etienne, but I liked what I saw on tape, and it'll be interesting to see like where he goes in the draft here.
Yeah, as far as Tootin goes for me, 5'9", 206, 40-yard dash time of 4.32 is eye-popping. And I think that's one of the reasons why he kind of rose up here in the ranks. Now, based on Football Insights, 75% of his attempts were from a zone-based scheme. So, very zone-dependent. But he's a home run hitter. He's a one-cut runner. He's that Shanahan-type system. He did have 9 fumbles, though. So, to me, I don't necessarily – those type of players don't really excite me. But let's say Tootin gets drafted by the San Francisco 49ers. Now I'm like, okay, now you got my attention. So it'll be we'll have to see where he ends up going. But we've seen it before of players like that mold that go to those type of systems that they can't be very productive.
Yeah. I mean, I also wouldn't be surprised if he just finds his way to the Miami Dolphins, as Mike McDaniel just seems to love speed, and that really just is a track meet team. And with his speed and home run ability, I feel like he'd fit really well there.
Well, look, a guy like Achane, right? I mean, he fit the system. I mean, I don't believe Achane, if he went to any team in the league, he could be successful. I think one of the reasons why he's successful is because he's in that Mike McDaniel system.
Right, which is, stems from the 49ers.
Right, absolutely, exactly. Yeah, it follows that same Shanahan Kubiak tree, that
Yep,
he's a part of.
100%.
All right, Joe. So heading over to our final tier number 5. Who do you got there?
All right, in tier 5 at number 12, I've got LaQuint Allen. At 13, I've got Basal Tutin. 14, Jordan James. And at 15, DJ Giddens.
Okay. So at number 13, I've got Ollie Gordon. 14, Jordan James. And 15, LaQuint Allen. So we both have LaQuint Allen out of Syracuse. And Joe, I'll share my thoughts here first. To me, he's a great pass protector. He's a huge receiving threat. He had 64 catches, 521 receiving yards, and 4 touchdowns. He has fantastic hands. I actually think he's kind of underrated as running the ball.
Yeah.
But because he's so good as a pass specimen, I know he's going to be involved in a team's offense. And I can't speak that about everybody else. That's his calling card. So to me, if he can fill out other roles, maybe he becomes a more complete back. But I felt like he was worth including in this top 15. You thought so as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he really was the do-it-all guy for Syracuse. I mean, you mentioned I feel like everyone talks about, his receiving ability, his route running ability, but, also just, as a runner, I mean, he did have 1,021 rushing yards and, 16 rushing touchdowns this year as well. So, and you mentioned his elite pass protection skills as well, which always, translate to the NFL well. And at the very least has that third down role, but be curious to see if NFL teams give him a chance on, first and second downs as well.
Now you had Tootin and Giddens here, and I've talked about them already. Do you have anything else to add as far as your thoughts around those guys?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Tootin and just, how explosive a runner he is and, potential home run hitter, and obviously shown that too with his ability to play special teams as a returner, and where his potential landing spots would go. You mentioned DJ Giddens, and it's funny, he is that Madden type of player. He's not going to win with power. He's not going to plow anyone over, but he just has he's very elusive in the open field with those just quick sudden moves. And then, one thing you got to like too is he only had 1 fumble in his final 428 carries. So ball security is a plus for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I had Jordan James and Ollie Gordon there. You didn't have either of those guys.
I got Jordan James.
Oh yeah, James. Okay, I couldn't remember.
Yeah.
What was your thought? Let's talk about James, and then I'll talk about Gordon here to wrap it up.
Yeah, I mean, James, 5'10", 205 pounds, 4.55 40 time, had 1,267 rushing yards. That's a 5.4 average, 15 touchdowns rushing, 26 receptions for 209 yards. Has really good patience as far as allowing the line to set up the holes, and he's got a nice burst once he decides to head upfield. Another guy that's good around the goal line, and then based on the Oregon having that running back by committee, he's got the minimal tread on that tire there.
Yeah, I mean, 1 year as a starter was a backup behind Bucky Irving.
Yeah,
I agree. Great vision, great toughness, and I think he could benefit from what we saw from Bucky Irving and how successful he was at the next level. And do we see possibly teams really liking Jordan James as well? Just based on guilty by association. So I think I do think he's an interesting prospect as well. Lastly, we got Ollie Gordon for me. It all comes down to 2023 versus 2024, right? I mean, this guy was, on the cover of NCAA football when it was coming back. Everybody was so excited about this guy. He had 1,732 rushing yards and 21 touchdowns. Next season, the offensive line got worse. Defenses were keying in on him. So which version is it? You listen to different people, they maybe say, hey, he's not that explosive. I don't know. I'd be very curious to see how NFL teams view him. 6'1", 226. He's a big bruiser of a back. So I just felt like, for me, there's a reason why there was so much value behind him last year. And when we find out where he gets drafted, that's where it all kind of gets shaked out. But at the end of the day, I felt like I had to include him in here on this list.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you stuck to your guns. I mean, you've kind of mentioned Ali Gordon, you like him, and kind of question, why is it that everyone isn't including this guy, or why all of a sudden the buzz went around? And I don't really know. I mean, obviously the lack of production from this past year versus his 2023 year, but it just is interesting. So, like you said, I am curious to see how NFL teams view him and what their plan is for him and how well he potentially does.
I just think it's recency bias, right? I mean, let's say that
Yeah.
he declared last year, he would have been right up there, no questions asked. But then you got guys like Caleb Johnson who are 1 year wonders. It's like, oh man, this guy, he's got to be, he's a top 5 running back all day, within this class. It's like, So again, different players, I get it, but it's just like I think the recency bias can really affect us when we're trying to evaluate and think about these players. So he's a guy that, obviously don't have him in the higher echelon of players here, but definitely think he's still worthy to be discussed and felt like he deserved to be here.
Yeah, he definitely, is a guy worthy of being discussed for sure, just because he did have such a great 2023 year. I guess, difference between him and Caleb Johnson is just like everyone on the defensive side knew Caleb Johnson was getting the ball. Iowa couldn't pass it, and yet Caleb Johnson was still able to produce despite everyone knowing that. So I think that has a lot to do with, the different, yes, it could be recency bias, but Johnson also did produce when everyone in the stadium knew he was going to get the ball.
So that does it for this episode as we went through our Dynasty Rookie Running Back rankings with tiers. Interestingly enough, like we said earlier in the episode, Joe and I did not know what each other's rankings were, and we pretty much were the same, though, than I had Ali Gordon and he had Trevor Etienne. If you haven't done so already, go ahead and check out our most recent episode where we talked about our Dynasty Rookie Quarterback rankings with tiers. Joe and I both gave our top 10 rankings, and you'll kind of see I think we're pretty similar, but we had some differences, so you want to go check that out. Coming up next week, we're going to be talking about receivers, tight ends, and IDP. You're not going to want to miss that. Thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time.